One or at least two questions that I got from reading the track list for this record is I saw two names.
Right.
And I didn't, maybe it's my own fault, but I didn't immediately recognize them as famous names. So I was wondering where did you get the names from? Or let's start with the first one, Diane Young.
Well, Diane Young is not a person that I know. And I've come to learn that there are quite a few Diane Youngs, as you might expect.
I googled.
Yeah, there's a bunch. Really, you know, Rustam sent me an MP3 of a song that he'd been working on for a long time, and it was this really cool, like punky groove with the saxophone. So I was listening to it, and I was like dancing around my apartment. I started singing some kind of lyric about if Diane Young, and then I was like thinking about it, because when you first say something out loud, you don't always know how you should write it. So I thought, well, I could write something about dying young. But then I was like, yeah, but it also kind of sounds like Diane Young, like a name. And I thought, which is better? And I meant, the name is so much better. And it made the whole song a little more exciting for me. And, you know, so then it took us a long time to finish the lyrics. And because we worked on the song for such a long time, but there's always something I liked about Diane Young.
Because subject-wise, I think you have to change then the whole content of the song instead
Well, also, I like the idea that Diane Young would be like the personification of dying young. You know, it's like some kind of Greek mythology type thing. That Diane Young is like a modern Greek goddess. And then Hannah Hunt, that actually I started writing based on a real person that I knew in college. And she was somebody I used to sit next to in Indo-Tibetan Buddhism class. And we would talk, and I thought she was cool. And I always thought she had such a great name. But the funny thing is that I'd always mispronounce her name. So her name is, the girl that we know from college, her name is Hannah Hunt. Mm-hmm. So then I started writing a song called Hannah Hunt. And it took us a very long time to figure out how we wanted to arrange it. But now, and then I remember when I told her about it, I said, if you like it, that's great, and you can feel connected to the song. But if you don't like it, at least you can always remember that you're Hannah Hunt and this is Hannah Hunt. Very slight difference.
Yeah, because maybe, was there a specific maybe chat that you had with her that made you remind her in that class, or?
You know, it's kind of lost in the mist of time, because that's actually the oldest song, in that some of the lyrics were written 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think that maybe it's because we were in Buddhism class together, that it made me want to write kind of a mystical country song. But I don't know. In some ways it's funny, because that song, it wouldn't have fit on the first album, because it's not like a college-y song. It feels a little older. I never went on a road trip with her or anything.
So it was just, or do you have a certain, maybe it could also have that you are a name fetishist in a way that you maybe remember, or have associations with certain names? Or
I probably am a name fetishist a little bit. I mean, we've always liked to have very specific words in our songs, and especially on this album. You know, on the first album we had Bryn and Walcott and Blake, but on this album I kind of like that now it's been a few years, so we take it to the next level, first name and last name. Feel like a good step forward.
A bit more mature.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing I have to ask. What was her reaction? Did she want to be connected with the song, or?
Well, we only talked about it a little bit, but she seems to like it.
Okay.
Which I'm happy about.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's actually an old song, about 7 years, you said?
Well, you know, it's the beginning of the song was old, like some of the lyrics and the melodies, but we never look at songwriting and arrangement, production as being distinct things. So that's why I say we began the song then. But then it wasn't finished until, you know, Rustam writes the piano part, bung gung gung gung, or then he also wrote that kind of, he had the idea for it to get really big, and there's this big kind of explosive part. And even when we had those parts, we still had these questions. Well, what should the verses sound like? We wanted them to be a little bit electronic and minimalist, but it took us a while to figure it out. So, you know, it's such a long journey that it's not done until the very end.
I was wondering, do you have still a big vault of unfinished parts, ideas, song structures that you can tap from? Is that a...
Yeah, I mean, everybody in our band is always gathering little things, and I think that's what makes our band work is that I'm always scribbling down lyrical ideas, musical ideas. Rostam's always got a million Pro Tools sessions that he starts or beats that he starts making. And Chris are always making little things too. And a lot of our best songs have literally been combining elements from different people. And that's why I've always kind of liked bands. Bands have always been kind of made a lot of my favorite music, because even if sometimes a band is a dominant person or two dominant people, but you hear the interaction of different ideas, which you don't always hear even in a genius's solo album. Mm-hmm. So there's something special about a band. And on this album especially, sometimes we had to wait for the really good songs to come. So we wrote a lot of like good songs that weren't quite right for the album.
Why?
Sometimes they didn't quite fit. Sometimes it's just a real visceral reaction. It just doesn't quite feel right. You listen to it and you're like, this is cool, it's not quite right. And then other times, it just doesn't feel good enough. And a lot of times, it can be confusing making an album. You don't always, your opinion can change. You can feel great about a song and then you get depressed. But the one thing you can always try to rely on is this idea of quality control. And we've always believed that we can never settle for something that's good. And, the rest of the world can think whatever they want. But for us, we have to really believe that every song we put on the record, there's something really special about it, and we feel really strongly.
Is that measured by the amount of time you like it? I mean, I can assume that maybe a certain idea that you feel very good about for maybe a week or 2 weeks, and then afterwards it starts declining.
Yeah.
Is that like a measurement tool for you, or
sure.
How would you describe it?
And we're always interested in what other people think a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, we always play songs for close friends and see what they respond to. Because I find you can be excited about something for 10 minutes and then start to realize it's not that good. But if you a lot of times we'll make a demo and we'll just listen to the shit out of it. Like when we first made the demo for Diane Young, I remember Ross and I just texting how we both listened to 30 times. That's a really good sign if you can listen to something 30 times. But there's still going to be some painful work ahead of you to finish it.